Hey, welcome back, friends. So, another edition of Doc Dave's Got Feelings. And this one, probably going to be the most personal I mean, all of them are personal to a certain extent, but this one certainly tying back into the most personal, emotional, shall we say, um, parts of me, because it gets into parts of me that are shall we say, tough to explore, or have been historically tough for me to explore. And so this is going to cover my history with being an academic. So me in academia, a bad romance, and certainly right off the bat, let me just say that uh, oh, for a number of the things and experiences that I'm going to share and that we'll talk about, uh, this is, uh, in retrospect, a lot of this falls under the self-inflicted wounds category. I didn't know this until about being out of academia for about a decade, and we'll get into the process um, that led to that insight and self-discovery. A big part of that uh, came out of my sobriety, and we'll get into that, and so certainly that's going to come in here. A lot of self exploration will come into it, but certainly for the parts that aren't self explanatory, uh, there are things about academia that I was not comfortable with, and that led to a certain amount of, shall we say, friction between myself and the individuals that I shared my academic spaces with. So with that, let's just remind ourselves of why we're here. So this is Doc Dave's Got Feelings, a new psychology education experience. Ah, yes, just the kind of irreverent palate cleanser that you never knew you needed. And this is going to directly tie into more than some of the other videos that we have on our channel. It's going to tie more directly into the clinical side of things, because we are going to go into um, some of the more therapy addiction issues that came into play with why I was not as successful in academia as I wanted to be. And so we will get into that. But for now, let's go into the summary. So, a few things that we will that we'll touch upon. So, I just briefly want to touch upon um, my training. So, University of Waterloo, Kent State University, and the Max Planck Institute for Human Development in Berlin, Germany. We'll talk a little bit about my experiences there. We'll talk about how they prepared me for being an experimental psychologist, a researcher, an academic, um, a teacher, a professor, a trainer of the next generation, how they prepared me for the interview process, my experiences on the uh, interview market, job market, and then also how they prepared me for the actual work of being an academic. And maybe this is common for just about every field, but your training for becoming whatever you choose to be, it can only get you so far. Nothing can really prepare you for actually getting out there and actually doing the job day in, day out. But anyway, and then this is just some of the places that I've worked. Some of them as a full-time college professor, some as a part-time, some as an adjunct, some for research institutes affiliated with these institutions. And there are some commonalities there and some experiences that I've had that were troublesome and bothersome to me, and I will explain those to you. And again, I was not the easiest person to get along with. I was not the easiest of colleagues to have. My most recent academic position was a one-year, shall we say, sabbatical replacement position at Salisbury University. That was in 2011, 2012. And that was so distasteful to me as a position that it soured me from seeking full-time employment as an academic from then on, and I haven't. I have not sought a full-time position as an academic ever since. Not that I haven't worked at academic institutions since, but I have not sought to be a full-time person, member of a faculty, and that's what we'll get into about how distasteful working in that psychology department was for me personally. And again, personal experiences. Other people obviously have other experiences, and they're just as valid as mine are. So with that, let's get on with the show. Hey, so the three places that I went to train for my job. The first was where I found out this is what I wanted to do, the University of Waterloo in beautiful southern Ontario, Canada. And then I went down to Kent State University in also beautiful Kent, Ohio. And then I went to Berlin, Germany at the Max Planck Institute for Human Development. Three different training institutions, three different philosophies, three different countries, three very different approaches to psychology, three very different approaches to research and training, all of which blended together in my head to create a rather unique approach in me to doing my job. Very quickly, the three things that I feel were most important that I needed to learn: how to do research, how to write academically, how to publish, how to give presentations, both in terms of poster presentations, the 10 to 20 minute conference presentations, hour-long research presentations, all of that. Talking in front of a group of people about your research, answering questions about your research, and teaching and conveying complex academic information in a readily understandable way. That is teaching. All of that I got a really good, solid foundation for from these three institutions. So, on to the next part. So for me, the bulk of this question I feel is was best answered by Kent State, where I did my graduate work. So in terms of the things that I felt helped me prepare to be able to get a job, I needed to figure out the application process. How do I apply for an academic job? Again, I had the most amazing dissertation advisor, Peter H. Ditto, now a professor at UC Irvine. Yes, his name is Peter H., as in H, Ditto, PhD, PhD. An amazing human being, professor. Go read his work, hugely influential in his field. He was great. He was very supportive. I wasn't always that easy, but he always had my back, and there were times where I didn't make it easy for him. So thank you very much. In terms of what I needed to learn how do the job. He helped me. The program, which I also felt the program had some obligation to help in getting their students up to speed in how to navigate getting a job as an academic, since that, or even here's one thing. I had no idea until actually I had academic jobs for a few years that there were options to not even be an academic, that there were research institutions who were interested in hiring me as a researcher. And that was completely, I had no freaking idea. And so that was bizarre to me, that an entire section of the job market I had no clue existed. Partly my fault, but also I think partly, not solely, but partly my program's fault too, because they were training me to go out there. Shouldn't they also let me know what the hell is out there? So applying for jobs, that my dissertation advisor and my fellow researchers in our lab, we all relied and leaned heavily on one another. We helped each other with that. We taught each other what to do. We supported each other. I learned a lot from that. The actual interviewing process, we ran questions by each other. Again, it was an in-house, ad hoc, informal process. We learned from each other. Same with research institutions, research presentations. We taught each other. We practiced with each other. We gave feedback with one another. There was no formal process through which that was done as part of the program. And I feel there should have been. There should have been some formal process through which we gave, as a program, presentations to one another. I just gave presentations to the members of my research group. There were only, I should have been, all of us should have been in a room, and we all should have had, given presentations to one another. And it should have been a formal part of our training. I don't know why it wasn't, and it should have been, because it would have been invaluable. If for no other reason than, as important as it was to get feedback from people who were studying different aspects of the same questions I was, when I was out there giving presentations in a job setting, 95% of the questions I was getting were from people who were not in my field, which is exactly the type of questions I was not getting when I was practicing. So I needed to be in a practice setting where the clinicians in my program, or the clinical students in my program, or the cognitive students in my program, they were the ones who were giving me questions, the ones who were not trained in my field, because those were the people who were giving me questions out there in the real world. And I did not have that experience. And the first couple times I was out there, that took me, I had to act quickly on my feet. The thing that I had the most difficulty with, luckily I'm kind of like an extrovert, so it came to me kind of quickly and on the fly, is there's an art to learning how to schmooze. There's an art to presenting yourself as someone who can get along with the people you are interviewing with, someone who can be part of the team, because that's your job. Your job is to present yourself as someone who can get along with them. Your job is to stand out from everybody else in the applicant pool. You got to be the one nail that's standing up. I'm a Star Wars nerd, so you're the stormtrooper wearing the red stormtrooper armor in the sea of white. You're the one standing out from the crowd. But also, and that's how you get hired. But once you get hired, you have to play by their rules. And as we'll see, that's the bad romance part of this little talk, because I had a lot of trouble adapting to their rules. So on to the next part. Hey, so as I just said, gotta learn how to be a team player, gotta play by other people's rules. The problem is, people aren't really explicit about what their bloody rules are. They're very explicit about how you violate their rules, but they don't tell you what those rules are up front. And the one thing about the training programs that I was in is that they stay the hell out of this. It's kind of like, we're hands off. We're not going to tell you anything about the people's programs. No, 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 no. You're out there. You're on your own. It might have changed in the years since I was first an academic trying to make it in the cutthroat business. But when I first started, for the first 2 years, I was on a contract where I could be let go for any reason whatsoever, show cause. They did not have to. So they could just show up one day, anytime in a 2-year contract, and say, "Dave, fuck off," and I'd have to be gone. That doesn't engender any type of loyalty to an institution. In fact, what it does is engender a fuck amount of fear. And it certainly keeps your nerves frayed. You are constantly grinding out research. You're constantly trying to build that resume because you've always got one foot out the door. You are always applying for the next place. You are trying to build some sort of foundation here, but you know that all you have to do is piss one person off and you're gone. And you've got maybe 4 years, 4.5 years, 5 years until you go for your tenure review. So my tenure review at Bard College, probably the single most stressful experience of my life. And at the time, there were 2 of us going through it at the same time. It is common knowledge that at that time, Bard College violated the collective bargaining agreement for both of us, and both of us ended up leaving Bard College. And it was just a horrible experience for both of us. Now, one of the things, and that was the first big, like, I really liked it there, upstate New York, place I really wanted to live. It was great. Let's put it that way. But the institution in and of itself, the faculty that I was working with, for the most part, great. The administration sucked balls, man, just horrible. Hopefully they've changed. You never know. Institutional memory, particularly ways of functioning, rarely change. But hopefully they have there. Now, one of the things that I was not prepared for, and maybe this is the job of the institutions I was trained at, maybe not, but one of the things I was not prepared for is how every place, and maybe I should have known this, I don't know, I was young. Not an excuse, but I was young. Every place has its own unique way of working, and that own unique way of working is interpreted and filtered through its own staff. That staff has its own kind of mishmashy way of kind of functioning that's easy for them. If you come in and you kind of like to shake things up and blah 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 blah, you just rub people the wrong way. And I sure ended up rubbing people the wrong way a lot. Let's just say there were a lot of difficulties that I had at places. For argument's sake, let's just say the majority of them were my own fault in not being politically savvy enough to keep my mouth shut. That being said, there were several situations that were deeply disturbing in terms of academia's treatment of me. And so much so that it soured me off the experience of being a full-time academic. The first experience, Bard College. The most recent experience, Salisbury University. Those are the book anchors in terms of full-time experiences. And I will go into those. And then what I'd like to do is just kind of like highlight how my interpretation of those and how my actions at the time were colored by my by the deepening grip of my addiction. I am a recovering alcoholic. I am over a decade sober, and my sobriety came after I cut ties with Salisbury University, and it was only after going through the process of getting clean and gaining some distance from these experiences that I got a clearer understanding of how my own behavior played a role in my bad romance with academia. So, that being said, my friends, let's take a quick pause, and I'll see you on the other side.